Welcome to Roll and Review, where you talk about all things nerdy and awesome. I'm Jim, and welcome back to our Roll and Review show. With us again, we got Peter, who is always a joy.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. Yeah, I shouldn't lie about you. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. So let's just kind of jump right into it, and especially the biggest thing with our resident Star Trek nerd here, or enthusiast. Would you rather be called an enthusiast? You're a nerd.
Yeah.
Star Trek Discovery came out this week. We talked about what it looked like it was going to be last week. How do you think it held up or didn't hold up to our thoughts or to the Star Trek shows before them?
Well, did it hold up to our thoughts? Well, our thoughts mine were somewhat optimistic. The general consensus of the rest of us were rather pessimistic. So did it hold up to that? Yes. Did it hold up to the Star Trek ideal? Short answer, no. Could it get better? Yes, but it wasn't a promising start. So let's see where to start with it. Well, I guess few points I'll try to stay mostly spoilery free so that those who haven't seen it don't raise the alarm and all that.
Too late. It's already happening.
Yep. Peter's getting shot down. Spoilers! Why did you tell me I must gouge out my eyes and cut off my ears?
I mean, you could do that. I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, just pull a Klingon, you'll be fine.
But super nerdy joke in that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. You're welcome. So this, as we said before, this show takes place about 10 years before the start of the original Star Trek series, which premiered back in 1966. The first two episodes actually don't take place at that point. It's more of a prologue to the rest of the show that takes place on a different ship with a different captain in a different set of circumstances altogether, which is kind of odd. An interesting take, because generally what we see with pilots is that they introduce your full range of characters, or at least a good chunk of them, and then they gallivant on to the rest of the show and the story arcs that are contained therein. This decided not to go that route, part of which it was the director and producer's choice to try to focus on one character, which is unique in Star Trek, as most of the shows tend to be ensemble cast sort of things. So if you were to watch something, say, even the original series, it was focused on three people, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And the other characters played in, but not as much. If you looked at, say, Next Generation, it was more ensemble. As time went on, it got more ensemble till you got to Enterprise, where the captain was there, but he wasn't really the focus.
Yeah.
So, but they're focusing on this main character, so they're making all the story elements try to revolve around this character, which at points feels contrived at best, farcical at worst. So, there's something to be said about making your main character the center of plots, but making them like the one catalyst for an absolute and utter Federation-wide disaster is, I don't know. It's a little interesting.
That sounds pretty terrible. It's the best I got. It sounds pretty terrible. Did we lose Peter there? That's weird. He has stopped moving. So, Peter, did you join us again? There we go.
I'm still here, as far as I know.
You cut out.
Everything froze for a second.
Yeah, everything froze for a second. So,
of course,
that sounds greatly terrible. So, what did you
Not
like?
Good.
What
did I like about it? Okay,
yes.
That's a much shorter list.
I figured as much.
So first on the list that I liked that I wrote down was I really did like the music. The music was good. The music felt like Star Trek music. The theme was great. The titles were meh, but the theme was great. The next thing that I liked was I liked the fact, one of the things that they did right at the beginning was they made the Klingons speak only Klingon. So you never heard anybody, you didn't hear Klingons speak English except for when they were attempting to communicate with the Federation, which is an interesting idea because we haven't seen that before in the shows anyway.
Sure.
The Klingons always at some point speak English, mostly because, well, your audience would prefer to be able to understand the Klingons without having to read subtitles the entire time. I, on the other hand, don't care, so I found it great. So that I liked. There was one character that I did like. He was the science officer. His name is Lieutenant Saru. He's the one that they've been kind of postering all over the place. The guy who's able to sense the coming of death or whatever. His character was actually fairly entertaining. He had a certain, I guess the best description right now is there's a certain C-3PO element to him where he's just kind of like, oh geez, what are you doing?
Sure.
Which made it mildly entertaining. And then his interaction with Commander Burnham was actually pretty good, where he would say something and then there'd be a sarcastic back and forth between the two of them for a little bit. Like Burnham would read a display and be like, well, it says that it's this far and it's this heading. And he would be like, yes, I too can read from a display. However, I can also make analysis, which was pretty great because it was just pointing at the fact of like, yeah, anyone can look at a console and see what it says, but you're not trained to actually understand what that means.
Sure.
So I found that pretty funny. So his character was well written. There was a bit of old canon references, so they talked about phase cannons and things like that you would have seen on ships of that age that were old, left over from the Romulan War. So there were some timeline references that I thought were good. And it did start with a mission where they went to retrieve a probe, and that was very Star Trek-ish.
Sure.
And they also did this one thing where they blew open a well to save aliens, and then they went and ruined it by pulling a JJ and having the ship enter the atmosphere, which everyone can see it then. So you're kind of breaking the Prime Directive. But whatever.
But the rules can just basically be whatever.
Yeah, it's like, let's not break Federation Directive number 1. Okay, so now the ship's going to come down through the atmosphere. So what are we doing? Breaking Federation Directive number 1. Okay, well, whatever. So that was kind of interesting.
Really, when you think about it.
Yeah. So that's kind of all that I liked about it.
All right, so what are your top 3 criticisms? I know I'm limiting it down to top 3.
Good idea, because there's quite a list.
I know, and we're not going to be here all night, so
no,
I have to go to work tomorrow morning, so I figured we should limit you.
Yes. So okay, I'm trying to limit it down to 3. Okay,
I know you are. I believe in you, Peter. You are a true American hero.
Yes. So the first thing that I have a complaint about, my biggest criticism, is the aesthetics. So which is the general look. Some people might be like, oh, well, this is a new, fresh look to it. The problem there is, one, it's supposed to be set in the prime Star Trek timeline. So it's not set in the Kelvinverse or the J.J. Abrams films timeline. But
no J.J. verse on this one.
It is being made under the auspices of that license, so everything looks like that universe. There are elements that look closer to prime timeline stuff, like you see the phaser has more of a phaser shape that they hold up. It looks more like a classic Trek phaser, but it's not. But it's not the same thing. The uniforms are the same color as the old Enterprise uniforms, with highlights that are the department colors from The Cage, which is the original series pilot. But outside of that, they have touch screens, which were not even on Enterprise. And there's all sorts of aesthetic weirdness. The soundboard was bizarre. There were sound effects from the Next Generation that were for specific events happening on the ship, like an intruder alert or a warp core breach or those sorts of things. And they were getting used for different reasons. I'm sitting there, I'm like, no, that means that the warp core is that's not a red alert. That's a warp core breach. What are you doing?
So just, I mean, I don't know if it would kind of just continuity errors. Generally.
Yeah, it's kind of that's sort of a continuity error, but it's kind of an aesthetic thing where it's just, we just took the sounds and we just kind of flopped them because they were Star Trek sounds.
Yeah.
And the Klingons' aesthetics are just really weird. If you heard my complaints about the Kelvinverse Klingons, where I said they were Blingons, add Troll to that, and you'll have these.
Oh gosh.
And they look really bad, and they sound like they have cardboard in their mouth or prosthetics in their mouth. So their Klingon is not spoken harsh. It's not spoken harshly or staccato. It sounds rather mushy, and so then it loses the strength and the aggressiveness of the language, and so it sounds rather weak.
Yeah.
And the ships look nothing like Klingon ships at all. So that's kind of a very broad stroke of aesthetics. Things don't really look that good. It doesn't mean that they're not made well.
Right. So things basically just don't look and sound like they should for the right people. All that.
Yes, they don't sound and look like they should for the timeline that they're supposed to be set in. And it's just it doesn't mean that they're not well made. Like everything is well made. It looks fantastic, but it's not right.
Yeah, it just doesn't match.
Right.
All right. So that's cool. Number two.
Number two, story. The plot was rather disjointed and didn't seem to like follow any sort of. There was sort of a general plot line of what was going on. Basically, here's character, meets Klingons, shit goes down, war. Character feels sorry for self. That's kind of the plot. But you had all these flashbacks and things that were going on within it that just made the whole thing feel disjointed, and there were elements that made characters feel weird. There were points where characters did some things that were just contrary to what they should be doing, and the story, like, it just didn't really mesh. So it was very disjointed. I mean, it kept my attention so far as I wanted to know what happened, but it wasn't like sitting on the edge of my seat like, oh boy, what happens next? It was like, what are they gonna do now?
So much enthusiasm.
Yeah. So that's kind of the second point, was the story was just very, very disjointed. The third thing, and I'm gonna get a lot of crap for this one. I hated the main character. Like, not just disliked, I hated the main character. And and it's not for reasons that people would normally assume, right? Most people assume it's like, oh, well, it's an African American woman, and so therefore you dislike her. No, that has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
The character was just, I guess you could say she was bipolar, is probably the best description. She was supposed to be trained as a Vulcan, and so you had flashback scenes where she's behaving very, very Vulcan and very stoic. And indeed, Captain, I have no emotion whatsoever and do not understand this human concept. So you had those flashbacks where she was doing that, and then all of a sudden you're in the present, and she's acting like you or I on the bridge, being sarcastic and doing all this random human shit. And throughout the episode, she makes some absolutely horrible decisions that are clearly not informed by logic and are also questionable even within Starfleet training. So this is a bit of a spoiler, but it kind of is the biggest point towards the character's issue.
Sure.
Is the captain and the first officer are supposed to have known each other for 7 years, right?
Sure.
So the Captain Georgiou took Commander Burnham under her wing and was teaching her how to be human, because Burnham has suffered some sort of tragic loss that is not explained yet. And so Georgiou, who has experienced something similar, is supposed to help Burnham become more human and also learn to cope with this loss in a human way that she is not able to because she was raised on Vulcan.
Mm-hmm.
Story elements that are also not explained. But towards the end of the first episode, the Klingons show up, right? And like, okay, well, the Klingons are acting threatening, we think. So Burnham goes and contacts Sarek and like, okay, well, what do you do with Sarek? What do you do with Vulcans? I mean, Klingons. And Sarek's like, well, Vulcans learned that Klingons only respect violence, so to get them to go away, to back down, the thing you have to do is you have to fire first.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Classic Klingons, that's kind of what you do. You don't necessarily hit them, but you fire a shot across the bow going, yo, I'm here, get out of my face. Like, I'm willing to fight you. So she brings that to the captain. She does not present a convincing argument. She doesn't say where she got this information.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not like, hey, I got this from the Vulcan ambassador who actually was there, who actually knows, who understands the Klingons. It was just like, Vulcans always do this. That's not a good argument, right?
Yeah.
So, and not only does she not like present it to the captain in a calm manner, like a professional, right? She barges onto the bridge, gives it to the captain all in one thing in a very emotional manner. And then the captain, rightly so, says, into my ready room, because, you know, challenging the captain on the bridge, not really the best idea.
No, and I mean we've seen that happen in a couple shows, like in Next Generation, where Data was in charge, and that Worf.
Some bozo challenges him, and he's like puts him in his place or in a brig or something. Yeah,
Worf challenged him, and he called him into the ready room and was like, basically, don't do that. You're the first officer. You're not tactical. And I was just like, I understand it, because he's like, have you seen Riker do that to Picard? No.
So Next Generation had a better concept of the etiquette of command and command structure, which all the newer stuff really doesn't, but I won't get into that. So they then go into the ready room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Burnham then proceeds to give a certain sort of argument of like, well, this is the best way to do to save the ship and save the Federation and prevent a war. Okay, slightly better argument, right?
Yeah.
She's getting all worked up, and then Captain is like, you know, I have been ordered by Starfleet not to open fire. Okay, follow orders. Good call, right? We also have no idea the intentions of these particular Klingons. They are sitting there. They have not opened fire, right?
Yeah.
They're not acting in an aggressive way. There's not a reason to open fire yet, right?
Yeah.
Burnham then gets all like teary-eyed or something. It was really weird. And then, you know how these characters are supposed to trust each other, right?
Yeah.
What does Burnham do? She nerve pinches the captain, committing mutiny, goes out on the bridge and tries to get the rest of the crew to open fire on the Klingon ship. The captain miraculously recovers from the nerve pinch like 30 seconds later and pulls a gun. But
Oh my god.
But the fact that this character goes from like, oh, I'm trusting you and I'm ready for command and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden she's just like, I can't make a rational argument and I'm going to shut down my best friend because I don't trust her anymore for some reason, because I know better. And it just, that's the reason I don't like this character, is she is arrogant, pretentious, and makes horrible decisions, even though she is supposed to have the training of both the Vulcan Academy and Starfleet, both of which are fantastic institutions, and she is showing none of that and is showing the worst elements of human behavior, with which Sarek would be appalled.
Yeah, of course.
So that is those are my three biggest critiques, are the aesthetics, the story, and the main character, who just, she could redeem herself. I'm not going to put that out of possibility. Star Trek The Next Generation had an absolutely awful beginning, and it got way better. Star Trek Enterprise had a really rough beginning. It got way better. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that it could get better. But as of right now, if you want a verdict on the show, as of the first 2 episodes, this prologue, as it were, it's pretty bad. So...
yeah, and I guess the important thing about actually like coming forward and saying like, well, okay, here are the issues with this, is those other shows that started really rough in the first season only got better because they listened to the criticism and adapted the show because of it, and didn't like double down, which, gosh, I hope they do, because I'm a huge Star Trek fan, even though I don't have TV right now, so I have to watch things in a, let's just call it a roundabout way to get to it. Because a roundabout way to get to it, because we don't technically endorse any sort of pirating.
No.
But on Monday I did watch like Rick and Morty, so figure out how. I'm not going to tell you. You're all smarter people, of course, than me. That's a comparative statement there. So I hope it gets better, so that season 2
well, basically episode 3 of the show will actually be the kicker, because that's actually introduces the main cast at that point.
Well,
so it's no longer a prologue. You're being brought in onto the actual ship Discovery. You actually meet the main captain. You actually see the main cast. You actually get the main plot elements. So then we'll finally know what's actually going on. So then we'll be able to better judge what the show is going to be doing.
Yeah, of course. Well, I guess that'll be something we have to look forward to.
Yep, and I will possibly continue watching it. At least I'll be seeing the next episode, and we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah.
So,
next topic for today, just getting off Star Trek, and we're going to make a huge turnaround to something totally different, because not totally different, just its opposite. Star Wars, because a trailer today came out. This is Star Wars Battlefront 2 trailer, which is like a rundown of what is in the game. The guy, I'm totally blanking on his name right now, Finn. The actor who plays Finn.
Finn?
Yeah.
Who? I just heard you say Finn.
Yeah, the actor who plays Finn.
John Boyega.
John Boyega. Thank you. Finn, or John Boyega, narrates the whole thing. They're just, what they've shown there's basically just like 3 times the amount of everything in the game. Praise be to God. From like the first one, so it goes from like like 4 planets to like I think they're actually like 13 or something, like 13 or 14 planet locations in the game. Which a lot of the stuff we already knew, but it's just really cool to see, and it looks pretty. The amount of heroes is like quadrupled. They're going with a class system for soldiers. You got so many more vehicles, air vehicles. I saw like in it, you see some space battles. Whether that means like that's part of multiplayer or not, that I'm not sure. I don't remember, but like you see all these things. It looks like a huge improvement to the game, so I'm pretty excited for that. And hopefully it doesn't make me regret buying it like the first one did.
Here's hoping. Yeah, the first one was notoriously awful. Well, not in the sense that it wasn't like well done, but there just wasn't enough in it.
Yeah, it was a mediocre multiplayer game that had a Star Wars skin on it. It had no single player. It had no anything. There was a little bit of, single player if you did like the survival on like the 4 places you could, but that was pretty boring.
Yeah.
And it just didn't feel like a full game. $60 wasn't worth it. But this one looks like it's actually going to be a full game worth the $60. So hopefully that
that's good.
Yeah, that just
I didn't really play much of the first one, so I can't really comment on it other than I've hoped that it's better than the first one. And story elements, I'm curious to see what they exactly progress with this whole Inferno Squad thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so moving on, we got a little Steam news. So Steam, you can see this on like Polygon, but Steam removed like 200 craptastic games. And I truly mean crappy games. Basically, there was a studio. What was it? It was Silicon Echo Studios, which has been like widely criticized by Steam users forever. It basically just put out terrible, stupid games, just to like get trading cards and crap. And like, people would buy these games for like almost nothing, but it was like, a change of skin, new game. Like, because some people, some of the developers, and I should air quote developers on Steam, they're shit. They make shit games, but they'll put out like a game and the next 4 sequels all in the same day. Because that means it's good and not just totally a reskinned of the other games. Basically just trying to make a quick buck. And I literally mean a buck because sometimes these games were like nothing. They were dirt cheap. So people would buy them. So that's good. I like that Steam's doing that because the kind of removing a lot of that stuff gives people, while yes, only 200 games, it's not a lot, but if they keep doing this with games like that, the library is going to shrink a little bit, but like the illusion of choice is going to be a little bit better because instead of seeing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games, we have a few less and a few that you don't really want anyway because they suck. So
yeah, so we'll be getting rid of the sucky games and seeing more of the better ones. Fine by me.
Yeah, and I don't mean like if you make a bad game, they should just get rid of it. Like I don't want that, but it's the idea of like you literally put a game out there, and then like that same day you put out 4 of the sequels that are literally just reskins of the original game.
Yeah, there's no reason to do that.
Yeah, that's dumb. So moving on from that,
Yeah.
got a little bit of movie news. Got a bunch of movie news. Yesterday, the production started for the Avatar sequels.
Speaking of things going back to back to back.
Yeah, sequels going back to back to back. They are literally starting production on, and I say the sequels because they are going to film the second Avatar sequel, and right after that, the third, fourth, and fifth. That's 4 sequels. So they're literally going to do these back to back to back to back. Because why not? Everyone's already there. For an insane amount of money, for all 4 sequels, $1 billion production budget, which means $250 million per sequel, which is insanely big.
That is insane.
Yeah, like that's crazy big, especially for like a sequel. To put it in perspective, the Hobbit sequels came in far less than that, because they weren't going to spend $1 billion on a couple sequels. But yeah, I mean the Hobbit sequels came in like I think like 100 and some million each, or might have actually been less than that. That's I don't know. Anyway, regardless, dear God, $1 billion, just $1 billion.
Yeah, so, just insane. That's just nuts.
Yeah. So you gotta look forward to that for the next like 10 years. Seeing as it's taken them 12 just to get into production for these, even though they've been talking about these since Avatar
since 2009, right? I think that's when the first one came out.
Probably. So maybe it hasn't been 12 years. Something like that.
It was 2009 or 2010, right around there. I know I was overseas in Ireland when it came out, and that was in 09-10. So
yeah. So got that going for us. Okay, and apparently that's really weird. Okay, sorry, Firefox. I don't think Firefox was trying to update on me. I think someone else was pretending to be Firefox and trying to update on me, so fuck them. Anyway, Firefox. So just interesting movie thing. So I don't know if you've heard Martin Scorsese's is directing biopic of Theodore Roosevelt, or biopic. Wow,
no.
Biopic of Theodore Roosevelt, and the wonderful Leonardo DiCaprio is going to be playing our ex-president.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, so we got Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio. Gosh, could be good.
Remind me what Scorsese has directed. I'm blanking.
Really? And now that you're putting me on the spot, you're going to make me look like a fool because...
Well, there's this thing called Google. I can educate myself. Just give me a second. You can keep talking.
And educate yourself. But yeah, so right now, I mean, these two are working together a lot.
Yep.
They were both on Wolf of Wall Street, which was a fantastic movie. They're working on The Devil in the White City, which, oh my gosh, I'm actually like wanting to go see. mainly because that book is fantastic and talks about a prolific serial killer from the Chicagoland area, H.H. Holmes, who murdered probably like 200 and something people that we know of, possibly even more, at the Chicago World's Fair. So, yeah, all good things there.
Okay. I now know who he is.
Oh, thank God.
Yes, I knew who he was. I just needed a reminder. Now I remember.
But so that should be pretty cool, especially because I like
Teddy Roosevelt's a cool guy, so as long as they do him justice, it should be a pretty cool movie.
Even though can't have Robin Williams play him.
What?
So they can't have Robin Williams play him, like in Night at Museum.
Yeah, well,
Hurts on 2 levels.
Yes.
All right. What else we got here today? They're gonna. I mean, Nightwing movie is gonna be casting. I mean, they have a director for the Nightwing movie. It's going to be made, but they haven't even cast Dick Grayson yet. So, dear God, that's something. Basically, that's something for us to look forward to because, well, there should be a lot of news coming out of that. And however, I'm really terrified. This kind of comes into the last Roll Interview show that like they're not going to put this in the main universe. They haven't declared that yet. They said they don't know where it fits in the DCEU, but I have a feeling it's not going to be in the main universe because
how they're separating the things again.
Side universe, because the Batman standalone movie and the Joker movie aren't in the main universe. But I don't know if maybe they'll put these in to have them in the main universe with like this and Batgirl. Who knows? I don't know. DC makes my brain hurt. Fuck my face. I mean, no, don't do that. That's dirty.
Don't worry. They've just got someone who worked with J.J. Abrams helping them with timelines. That's all.
Clearly. Here's something I'm not too excited about. Mainly because I don't like the show, but Teen Titans Go has a movie coming out. Because that's what we need. I wish they would give us a movie for the previous Teen Titans, but whatever. It doesn't make me excited.
Not much can be said other than meh.
So this is going to come out like July of next year. On a happier note, season 3 of Young Justice is going to is also going to come out along with like a live action series from DC. However, all of these things are going to be on DC's new digital streaming service.
And everyone follows CBS off the deep end. Okay, got it.
I mean, again, I'm waiting for someone to just make a deal with all of them to put together streaming packages because I can't afford to buy a membership to all these gosh darn packages.
Well, even like it would make sense if they bundled together. Like, I mean, Netflix would pay them plenty to get these things on their service because, I mean, they're going to get more subscribers for that sort of thing. But
Young Justice season 3 of Young Justice is only happening because of Netflix. Because season 2 only happened because of Netflix.
Right. So it's just one of those things of like, why does every network need its own streaming service when we already have things like Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime? Like, that's where most people get their stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's because everyone who can wants like the money from the streaming service.
that's true.
I mean,
yeah.
Disney's doing it too. CBS, basically everyone's doing it now. Where you're just going to have to pay for a bunch of channels on the internet.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. This is what bugs me because you're right. It used to be those main three, and you could pretty much find everything amongst those. And if you had a couple of friends who had one of the other ones, you could like swap passwords and watch what you wanted to watch. But now everyone is trying to make their own. Nobody wants to send their stuff over to Netflix because, I'm not going to watch DC stuff all the time if I have other options, and they just want me watching their stuff. I'm sure partially for ratings, especially for, the CBS one, and like those main networks. Because then they can add in, how many times was it streamed, how many times was each episode streamed, all that into ratings. But yeah, I don't know. This just angers me. Angers me a lot.
It vexes me.
This vexes me. Oh my God, you should come on the show. You won't hear this. But on a little bit happier news, maybe. I only say maybe because these things don't tend to go well. A little news from the Uncharted movie, live-action Uncharted movie. Apparently, Bryan Cranston is being considered for a key role. Yeah. There are a bunch of people. A bunch of people who are in this. I think Tom Holland's in it as young Nathan Drake. I think like Mark Wahlberg is going to be in it. A whole bunch of people. I think the dude from I can't remember which. I think the adult from Real Steel. Yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of people who are being considered for a lot of things. I hope this is really good because the game series is absolutely fantastic. I love the Uncharted games, and hopefully we'll have a good,
video game movie,
which would be so nice.
Yeah, I mean, they are also making a Tomb Raider movie, so we'll see where that one goes too.
Yeah,
but they already made 2 of those, and they were, meh.
Yeah, I think he's. They're considering Bryan Cranston to be like Sully, which I could see it. Put a mustache on that man. He could be Sully. I'm fine with that. It's his more experienced. We'll call him more experienced mentor / father figure. So I don't know. That'll be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And was there much to come out about the Tomb Raider movie? You mentioned it.
Didn't hear you. Oh, Tomb Raider? Yeah, they are making a new one. I just saw I went to see Kingsman yesterday, and I saw the trailer for it. It seems to be. Honestly, I don't remember people's names who are in it. I could Google it right now, but that would just cause a pause. you can find it yourself. You know how to Google. You have fingers. But it looks like it's following mostly the storyline of the first of the newer games. So Tomb Raider, full stop. Not Rise of the Tomb Raider, not any of the previous ones. Just the newer one where she's on that island and starts out with the bow. So they had a bunch of shots of her running around with a bow, and she was jumping around on planes and things and using her ice pick to climb on stuff. And yes, she did fall. Yes, she did grunt and hit things, which was the common complaint about that particular game, where you're just crashing into stuff all the time. So yes, there was that in there. She did have the braid in. She did pull out the 2 pistols at the end of the trailer. But outside of that, it looks like it's gonna attempt to be a mostly high octane action movie. But I'm not entirely sure how that's gonna work. Since Lara Croft more falls in the line of, Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. It looks like, based on the trailer, it could be decent as long as it tries to stay true to what it is rather than do something weird. But based on the trailer, there's not much more to say other than they're following the whole storyline of following her father's notebooks, which I think you've done in multiple games. So
all right, well, I mean, we'll see if that one's good. But now, towards the end of the show, we have, as always, Comics with Jim. So I've got 2 comics for us today. No number ones, kind of actually both comics that have wrapped up. So if I'm not going to spoil the storylines, but this is for if you saw them, but you didn't pick them up, might be something to look into. I know at least our first one is going to get is probably going to be in a trade, because it is the Darth Maul book. And oh, do I love the Darth Maul book. Just a little bit of glare. There we go. Darth Maul. Oh, so good. So
nice.
I think I talked about this one a little bit before. It takes place before before obviously Phantom Menace. I guess not obviously. Clone Wars brought him back to life. So it happens before the Phantom Menace. And basically almost leading up to it, where Darth Maul is being kept in the shadows, basically like the dog's still on his chain. The Emperor's not letting him do much because it's not the right time to reveal that the Sith have returned.
Because they cannot have their revenge yet.
Yeah, so basically Maul decides to disobey the Emperor. And
that always ends well.
Well, actually, so he disobeys the Emperor and finds a Padawan who's out and about. She gets captured. He goes. Basically, he pays Cad Bane in his group of merry men. I have to laugh at calling them a group of merry men. But basically, pays them to help him get her because he is filled with such hatred and anger, and he's feeling empty, and he's basically been taught through his training that to satiate that feeling, he'll have to kill Jedi. And so, obviously, I think we know who wins the fight, seeing as it's before Phantom Menace. And the outcome of that fight, seeing as the Jedi Order does not know, since the Jedi Order doesn't know of their Sith yet, by Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
So I think you can figure that one out.
Yeah, I think we can hazard a guess on the outcome.
Yeah, but it's
Darth Maul.
It's a really cool book. The art's great. I love that it shows a side of Darth. Like it shows Darth Maul. It gives us far more into his brain before the movies, like where he, like kind of where he was coming from once those movies started, um, and not just drop him in and then find out more about him after Obi-Wan cuts the top half off the bottom half.
Yeah.
Because that's so much of, I mean, that's pretty much all of what Darth Maul is in Clone Wars and Rebels
Rebels, yeah.
Is trying to get revenge for the person who almost killed him. And that lust of and anger. So it's really cool. It just gives us more insight into him, and I like it. The second one, a book from Image Comics, The Old Guard. And of course, the title is backwards in the screen because why wouldn't it be?
Oh, looks forward to me.
Does it? Oh, maybe it is.
Yeah. You just get a reverse image of yourself, so
I do.
You can more or less know what you're pointing at.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, The Old Guard. Really interesting book. So unlike Darth Maul, which ended and is over with because we know how it ends in the shows and all that and the movies, the Old Guard will come back. There will be another run of this at some point. But the whole premise of that book is throughout history, naturally there are people who for some reason just cannot die. And eventually they do. They lose the ability not to die. Generally it's soldiers, fighters, basically people who are putting themselves in harm's way often. And
right.
So like this book starts off, they do a mission, and then they can kind of sense when there's a new one because this woman who's in the U.S. Army gets shot and is like declared dead. Well, she comes back to life. And so like they bring her into the group, and it's basically there has to be conflict. So someone finds out about them, and puts the pieces together. And and there's twists and turns, and I'm not going to ruin it. It's actually a really good book. I really suggest it, especially because it's 5 issues. That's it. 5 books. It's really good. One, if you want to stop supporting Marvel and DC's comics because sometimes they don't do the best things. I mean, the Star Wars section of Marvel I'm enjoying, but there's a lot of stupidity going on in the rest of it with a previously a Hydra cap and pandering to whoever. Image Comics is pretty great. They're really not pandering. They're in it to make a good story. That's really what comics should be about. The art's pretty good. It's not like photorealistic. It's pretty comic booky, but gosh, it really does. It looks great. A lot of action. Well, it's just great. I suggest going out, buying The Old Guard. It's fantastic. So that's pretty much all we got for today. So if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button down below. If you like this video, you want to see more like it, hit that, and then hit the little bell icon so you you get alerted when we start doing this or we post new videos. There should be a new one towards the end of this week, if the editor, Alex, does his work. Alex, do your work. Please hit that like button. If you want to join in the conversation, feel free to hit us up in the comments below or join us live. And I mean, we always have the live chat open. So if you ever have input or questions or anything like that, we will see it and we will respond. Also, there should be like two squares popping up next to my face right now. Click either one of them to be taken to another great video. Hi, bless you, Peter. So one's probably selected from YouTube. Another one may have been selected by me because I think you should watch that video. And we'll see you next time.